Welcome to AFP. My name is Devane Desai. I'm joined this week by David Goss. On today's show, we do a special look back at a pair of Canadians and our sit-down interviews with them. David, a monumental year for Canadian soccer in many ways, and these two gentlemen we talked to were big factors in that, Jonathan Osorio and Alistair Johnston.
Yeah, it was awesome to have them on the show. Alistair now going to Celtic. Like, do you think about how weird it is that I know it's Celtic, it's not Milan or but like someone that we sort of conveniently chatted with is now like going to go play for one of the bigger names in soccer. Like, does that hit you every once in a while?
It does. And I mean, seeing him in the press conference when he was introduced at Celtic, he was so well spoken and charming the pants off the media. And I like, yeah, in our interview, he was great. Like, you could tell this guy, when he's done playing, he'll be just fine talking about the sport if he so chooses to, because he was just really well spoken and had some really good insight into making the leap from the college ranks and making the leap from Canada into the pro world in MLS and how tough that was and the trials and tribulations. So it was really fortuitous. And yeah, he had a massive season, massive time for both club and country. And then DG Jonathan Osorio, I think he's another one of those guys that I met for the first time a very long time ago. And to see him emerge as the type of leader he is and signing a new long-term contract with TSC to stick around long-term, it's really cool to see how far he's come.
Yeah, what he is accomplishing didn't exist before, and yet it was forged because of him, right? Like Oso resetting, I think, what a Canadian in MLS can be and what a TFC legend can be. And yeah, it's always awesome to talk to him because he's just his true self all the time. And that's very rare to be able to find in the world, let alone in sports.
Two Canadian national team members, two guys who laid it all on the line for their country and helped Canada make their first World Cup in 36 years. So I hope you enjoy these interviews with Jonathan Osorio and Alistair Johnston coming up next. Welcome back to AFP. Very, very lucky to be joined this week by Nashville SC defender and member of the Canadian men's national team, Alistair Johnston. How's it going?
Thanks for having me, guys. It's going really well. Can't complain at all. And, exciting times for both Nashville SC and the Canadian men's national team. So we have a busy couple of months coming up. So no complaints over here.
I was going to say, I feel very fortunate to catch you now, sir, because I feel like you're riding extremely high with a really good Nashville team that I think is now firmly in the conversation in the East. And I think I wanted to start there just in terms of it's a young club. We know it's a recent expansion franchise, but you start last year. Obviously, COVID hits everyone, but then we get to MLS's back and Nashville's dealt a second blow in terms of not being able to play those games. But you guys managed to regroup from that, get everything together, and then make a playoff run in where you beat TFC. I know a club close to your heart as well. But I wanted to ask you, like, how was that introduction to professional life? Because I have to imagine it was pretty challenging.
It was quite insane, to be honest. It was funny when we go around the locker room and all the older guys are like, man, they kind of felt bad for us. Like, this is not what a rookie year is supposed to be like. But they also think that we got out of some things in terms of rookie duties just due to social distancing. So they were like, you're lucky on that end. So it was a little funny like that. But to be honest, it felt like one long preseason. It was crazy. It felt like we just gotten fit. We finally had kind of figured out what our roster was looking like. We were all excited to get through that first 8 weeks of hard running and really kind of, going over the basic things, especially being an expansion team. Everyone was new. You're not the only new guy being a rookie. Everyone on that team from top to bottom was new. So going over all of that, and then obviously we just begun the season and then COVID hit. So we took some time off there, and then we got back pretty quick though into doing some individual sessions and some small group stuff. But that was a lot of fitness again, just getting all ready for that. And then finally got to the MLS's back tournament. We were hyped to go to that, real excited. We got down there, and then COVID hit us pretty bad, and we were trapped in our rooms for 2 weeks down there in Orlando. And then you know what happens then is as soon as you get back, you got to do pretty much a preseason again to get the fitness back. So it was a long grind those first 6 months or so of 2020, but it was all worth it in the end once I got out there and was able to play. But it was a pretty crazy, inaugural season for the club, just being in the MLS and and being able to share it with our fans, which was a nice thing. By the end of the season, being able to get people into the games at Nashville, which was nice. But tell you what, this organization has been top class from top to bottom so far, and it's been a great city to be a part of, and just love representing this city for sure.
So definitely a challenging year, and I'm not saying anyone really has a blueprint for any of this stuff because we're all kind of learning on the fly. But I got to say, for Nashville's sake, in terms of adapting to the league and kind of getting it together after all those things you just mentioned, I think having Gary Smith in the fold has been pretty fortunate for the club. I wanted to ask you, like, personally, Gary Smith has been around. He's kind of done it all. What has he been for you as a player?
He's been a great first coach, I think, for me to have when you go into the league. I think you want someone that kind of fits your style as well. And me being a defender and him being, a lot of people would say, a bit more of a defensive minded coach, but me also having a British background and kind of understanding that lingo and all that stuff definitely helped. I know some of the other more American rookies struggled a little bit more than I did necessarily, just because I've kind of grown up in that environment where, we're used to that the English kind of way to a degree. So no, he's been great for me, and it took a while for me to just to earn his trust, but that's exactly what you expect at this level, and nothing's going to be handed out, nothing's going to be given. And I think that it's really worked out well for me, because once I did gain his trust, he's been a guy that, he really values that in players, that when he can count on you, he will count on you. Doesn't really matter your age at that point. But getting over that first hurdle was definitely difficult. But, that was what was to be expected, coming to the pro environment out of college. So he's been a great coach for me, and he's really taught me a lot in terms of how important it is to defend as a unit, and just being completely mentally tuned in. And most importantly, it's just what it is to be a pro. Once you take that next step up, what it really value in terms of not just taking care of your body, because that's always something that I've been really good at, but just, you can't have 1 minute off. If you play 89 great minutes, but one bad minute, that's not acceptable anymore. Especially when we were an expansion franchise, when we knew, if we were going to be in games, especially that first year, is that we were probably going to have to keep a clean sheet or maybe concede one, to be lucky to get out of there with 3 points. So that was a big thing for us, especially as defenders, is, hey, we can't afford to have a bad game, because we have a bad game and it's not going to end for us. So just being mentally tuned in, I think, is something he really drilled into me, which has been great. And I think the Canadian men's national team, it's something that I try to bring there as well. And John Herdman's been a big fan of that for sure.
Well, it's funny because I feel like doing some research, you made the move to right back at school at Wake, but I feel like for Nashville, you are predominantly a right wing back. And I think there are some similarities to how you're being used for Canada as well. But how have you found that kind of transition as well, positionally?
Yeah, so I started as a center mid, and I played as a center mid until my senior year, actually, in college, when I got moved to right back. And it was kind of a freeing moment, honestly. I was a solid center mid, but I was never going to be anything that was going to be, MLS teams eyeing up. So moving to the right back was a great choice, fit my style and my physical traits really well. So yeah, that first year at Nashville, we played a really solid back four. And it was something that, it's something that Gary had always kind of tended to play throughout his time in the league, but he'd also been known to switch to a 5 at the back or a 3 center back kind of formation, depending on who we were lining up against. And as this year went on, we had some injuries. Obviously, then some guys were missing through Gold Cups and stuff like that. Walker Zimmerman being a big name for that. And when you do lose a guy as pivotal as Walker is to our back line, sometimes we do need to switch things up tactically. And a lot of the time that meant going to a back 3, and it was something that he had tested out before. And honestly, it fit a lot of our player profiles to a degree that, we went out there, we rolled with it, and it worked. So it's been one of those ones, whether it's playing in a back 4 or playing in a back 3, I feel really comfortable with. And I can kind of lean on my time as a center mid, actually, when I play in that back 3, because if I'm a right wing back, it's pretty much right back, but with a green light, which is a lot of fun for me offensively. But if I'm playing as a right side center back in the back 3, it kind of feels like I get to quarterback it a bit. I'm a bit more central, and I can really find those passes that I'm used to, that I was doing my entire life, playing as a deep lying central midfielder. So it's kind of been a nice balance for me, and I feel really comfortable whether I'm in a right back in a back 4 or as a wing back in a back 5 or as that outside center back in a back 5. So again, it's one of those things that I think it's great as a young player to just be able to go out there and just kind of get thrown into the fire with those formations and those different tactical positions. You got to learn on the fly, and really kind of this is the big development years, I think, especially being in a locker room with guys like Dax McCarty and these old guys that have been around the block and know a thing or two, for sure, within the league, and have seen young players, how they develop and playing different positions. And all these guys give me great pointers in terms of what I need to do with whatever position I'm playing. And, I'm just trying to soak it all in and really develop as a player, because at the end of the day, if I can show that I can play right back, right wing back, right side center back, it only helps keeping me on the field. So I'm all for that.
Two things. Versatility is always a huge asset. And secondly, I hope you don't call Dax and those guys old guys to their face constantly.
I can call Dax
sometimes.
To his face. He just got awarded his 400 cap special commemorative jersey this morning in training. So he knows he's getting up there now. So he has no problems with me calling him old.
Coming off a tight draw against Orlando, I think we can all agree a very solid team in the East. And generally, I think Nashville is in this tier a bit below New England, who I think is having a stormer. But there's Orlando, Philly, Nashville, New York City. It's funny, you mentioned last year, and the defensive solidity was something you could hang your hat on. But I think this year, every time I turn on a Nashville game, I'm seeing a potential goal of the year candidate, whether it be Hany Mukhtar or CJ or Alex. I feel like this is a by community kind of drive here. Is this a tactical thing from Gary and crew, or is this also guys kind of finding a different level individually and becoming those kind of scorers you needed last year?
I think it's something that they've always had within themselves. Mike Jacobs did a great job putting this team together, and he went out and got the players that he wanted. And I think that it takes time to adapt to this league. And it's the same with any league around the world. When you come over from a foreign country and this is your first time living in America and you're going through a pandemic, it is difficult, to really find your feet. And I think that now we've kind of, we have that structure and we have that, that chemistry that's been built up over the year, over the past 18 months now, you could say, where those guys are really truly starting to blossom. Hany Mukhtar has always had that skill. It's not like he just, switch was flipped. It's just been, he feels a little more comfortable. I think he's been fitter this year in terms of not having any little nagging injuries. And then also the addition of CJ Sapong has been night and day. He provides such a presence up there. And then again, just a guy that has been in this league and has scored in this league and understands how this league works. I think that's really invaluable. And I think around the field, you can see that a lot of the guys on our team have that, from Dax to Lovitz, Romney, Zimmerman. A lot of these Godoy are great examples of guys that are in that upper kind of echelon, but might be overlooked a little bit because they didn't necessarily play overseas or something like that, or have that really big name in terms of a huge price tag or anything. But they're guys that have been in this league for around the decade mark, each of them, and have been really solid contributors wherever they've been. So I think that's been a big thing. Just adding a guy like CJ Sapong has also helped definitely, just unlock some things for Randall Leal and Hany Mukhtar up there and all those attacking players. So it's been a real joy to watch. Us as defenders, we're just, how can we get the ball to you as quick as possible and put you guys in position to succeed? So that's kind of our job as a back line. But no, it's been a ton of fun playing with them this year for sure.
I think Danny Lovitz is probably one of the best examples of someone just working incredibly. I was with TFC when we picked him in the draft, and it was not a sure thing at all. It's like, sure, you come to camp and we'll see how things go, but he made himself undroppable. And then now you see what he's doing with Nashville and with the U.S. national team. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. All right. That's the Nashville story, Alistair, but I know a lot of fans of our show are very excited for what's coming in September. It's been a long time coming. I was reading a quote from you. I think this is after maybe the Bermuda game or the Cayman Islands game, but you were saying, I was born in 98. I have never experienced something like this. And I think for me, who's 10 years older, I'm also like, holy cow, I have never seen anything like this either. What was it like in Chicago after that second leg against Haiti? Because I think a lot of us watching from home felt this catharsis about being able to witness something we haven't been able to see ever. But what was it like there for you guys?
When I look back on that one, it's an interesting one, because I think when I looked around and I saw how emotional and and how big of a thing it meant to the older guys, it kind of really put into perspective for us young guys what this truly means. Because I think when you go around to the younger guys like myself, Kamal Miller, and then obviously guys like Alfonso Davies, Jonathan David, these kind of guys, we went into that game like, yeah, no, we're expected to win this. And that's kind of,
right.
Since I've been in the program, we've been a very solid team, you know? But before that, I think for the guys like Milan Borjan and Jonathan Osorio, the guys who have seen some trials and tribulations, you know, have been through some really tough moments as well with this program. And in order to kind of see it coming out with that little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you could say, to a degree for those guys, it really kind of put into perspective like, wow, like, you know, we really are creating history here. But for us young guys, it was like, hey, like this kind of isn't our ceiling. Like we feel like we have so much more to accomplish. And so much more to show the world what we're able to do. So it was a really cool moment in kind of that sense that it was like, yeah, we did that, but man, like when we go home, like, this is going to be a really big thing. You know, this is kind of even bigger than what we can truly grasp our minds around. So, you know, I think when I originally went in, my idea was always going to be like, okay, you know, 2022 it's going to be, you know, that's going to be really tough, but 2026 is what we're kind of building towards. But as soon as I got in there and we realized how talented this group was, it's like, no, we're not waiting for 2026. Like 2022 is a real thing, and we're going to be really disappointed if we don't make it there. So I think that's been a really cool moment within the group, is just realizing like, no, this isn't something that's far-fetched. It's there for the team if we want it. And, you know, it's going to be a tough 7 months, but that's CONCACAF. You know, nothing that you really want that bad is going to come easy. So it's something that everyone I know in the group's super excited for. And I could just feel the energy. It was great after those ones. After the Gold Cup, we went up and played in Toronto. You could just feel the energy within the crowd. And even they were cheering me on a little bit. And it's like, okay, this is cool. You know,
it's hard, man. Player. It's hard.
Yeah. You know, I'm getting a little bit of love now.
Tejan came and we're like, he scored. Gotta cheer. We got to cheer it, man. He's doing well. Yeah. He's doing well. Yeah, it's just, I mean, still to this day, it's pretty exceptional. And like you said, work to do. And we talked about Gary, but I think John Herdman, we know well as Canada fans from his work with the women's team, and helping them lead the way to a gold medal that we just witnessed in Tokyo. But yeah, I think John's man management is something that we hear about a lot. What's your relationship with him been like?
He is, he's the ultimate man manager. I'll tell you what. The best part of perspective, whenever I come back to Nashville after, Steve Guppy, my assistant, always pulls me over and he goes, "Mate, whenever you come back from Canada, you always just seem more confident in the ball and more sure of yourself. I'm not sure what it is going on over there, but you always do." And it's strictly down to that coaching staff at Canada. I'll tell you what, they are the best at instilling confidence in you. And making you feel like you belong and that you can, you know, create history and reach that next level and really, you know, reach that untapped potential that you weren't even sure you really had. And John's been unbelievable at that, with just in terms of, his man management, understanding each player, what they need. Some guys need a little more tough love. Some guys need that kick up the butt, you know, but other guys need a little bit of, you know, a little cozy up. I've never been one that's needed that, but at the same time, you know, he's just so good at kind of pushing the right buttons on every single person that, you know, I can do better and I want to do better. And he's just been the perfect coach, I think, to lead this program with the current crop of players that's coming through. Everyone's so bought into everything that he's putting out for us. So, you know, it is a really exciting time, I think, for Canadian players and Canadian fans. I think watching this team, it's a team that's quite enjoyable to watch, and you can kind of feel that sense of camaraderie that, you know, he has everyone in there bought in to play for the badge. No one's there just because it's an extended vacation or, you know, whatever it is. It's everyone's there because we want to represent Canada and we want to win. And I think that's something that he's really instilled with this culture that he's brought in. And it's something you saw with the Canadian women's national when he was there, and they've continued to carry that legacy on. I mean, look what they just completed. An unbelievable journey in the past month. That's kind of captivated all the Canadian soccer players across the country, girls and boys. So, you know, I think he was a big foundational piece in that too. So, you know, that's something that us in the men's program look at and go, why not us as well? So he's been a big part, and I really just enjoy playing for him, and he's done a great job at, you know, really setting that culture at what it needs to be a winning national team.
Do you know what he's listening to in that headphone he's got in? Is it like a spotter or something, or?
It's funny. He originally started with the white AirPod, and then he got like a tan colored one, I think, to try and blend into his skin tone.
Spy, it's spy stuff.
I've never asked it, but I'm guessing he's got some. He might have our tactical guy up in the stands watching break, feeding him some numbers, saying, "Oh no, Alistair's pass completion has just dropped below 90%. You gotta have a word with him." Probably something like that.
I wanted to, and you can't pick a Canadian player because we're going in the Octagon, but who do you reckon is the best player in CONCACAF going right now? No Canadians included, because I think we got some options, but can you choose one?
That's going to be it's a tough one. I mean, it's hard to go against Fonzie or Joe David, but I won't pick Canadian, even though Tajon's been on fire too. I hadn't gone up against Pulisic yet, but from what I've heard from all the guys, that he is that next level player. So I'm excited for that matchup. I was bummed that Chucky Lozano got hurt in the Gold Cup and had to pull out, because that was one that I was kind of really eyeing up with being a really good matchup. But, the one that I'm probably most intrigued about seeing, being a huge Premier League fan, is probably going to be Mikel Antonio for Jamaica. I want to see this up close and personal. The power, the strength, the technical ability. He is a handful and a half for any defender. So I am curious to see him and Leon Bailey, how they connect for Jamaica. So in terms of top 10 talent, I think Pulisic probably is it, if you're not looking at Canada, him or Chucky Lozano. But I'm most intrigued to go against Mikel Antonio, I'd say.
I'm sad my co-host David Goss is not here because he'd love that answer. He's a Mikel Antonio stan.
Is he? Okay.
Super Jack for September 2nd. You can have friends and family there, hopefully.
That's the plan. It's a pretty cool window for me, playing in Toronto, where I grew up, and then coming back down to play in Nashville, where I play club, and then going back up to play Toronto. So this is the best window for me in terms of just having people out there for the game. So it should be a pretty packed crowd of Johnstons and other friends and family. So we'll see. But it will be interesting playing in Nashville too. I'm excited for that one against the U.S. And
that's right.
Really getting booed in my hometown right now. So that'll be a fun one too. So I mean, all the games. I mean, I've talked to some of the guys who've gone through it on my Nashville team, just through with their clubs, and they've just been talking about how each place is. There's not going to be a single easy game. Every single place, whether you're playing U.S. or Mexico, obviously, just those are the top dogs in CONCACAF, as they have been for the past little while in terms of the quality on the pitch. And then you go to a place like Jamaica where the grass is 6 inches long, or you go to El Salvador where you have to fly. You're flying in on horizontally just to land the airplane. So there's going to be some funny ones. Honduras, when they're going to be pulling the fire alarms and setting off firecrackers. So I'm looking forward to all those games. And, that's something that I don't think a lot of European kind of fans understand about the CONCACAF. They'd probably say U.S. Mexico should qualify every time, but they don't really understand the grueling travel and just how difficult some of the places you have to go to play are. I mean, just going to play in Haiti, some people would look at that and go, oh, it was only a 1-0 win or whatever it was down there. But my goodness, that was an insane trip. It was eye-opening for all of us on the team, going to a third world country, which was in just such disarray. And it was really tough to see. And then playing on turf in 40-degree temperatures was insane as well. So, there's a lot of places in CONCACAF that are just super difficult to play, super difficult environments. But that's what makes this confederation so much fun to play in.
You mentioned the Gold Cup. It might be impossible to answer this question because it was maybe one of the most captivating games I've ever seen as a fan. But I'm talking about that loss against Mexico in Houston.
Yeah. Can
you take one single thing away from that match as you walk away? Like, what will stick with you the most? Because I think between the handbags and like the wildness of everything going on, you saw a Canadian team that kind of grew up before us, right? And I think this was one of those seminal moments.
I think the biggest thing I took away from that game is, I wouldn't necessarily say it was fear, but there was a respect in the Mexican players' eyes and the fans and Tata Martino's eyes that he kind of came in. You can kind of sense that they came in here thinking, all right, yeah, Canada, we've seen this one before. Score an early one, we'll roll over these guys pretty good. But they didn't understand that not only do we have talent, but we also have that fighting desire now, which you might not have seen before. that we are willing to stand up to the CONCACAF bullies to a degree. We're not going to go without a fight. It didn't matter if we were playing in front of 70,000 Mexicans or not. We were going to stand our ground and we weren't going to give over. So I think that was a really cool moment. It's just seeing and you could sense it on the field. They were like, okay, these guys aren't what we expected. These guys can play.
It's different
now.
It
is different.
Yeah.
This isn't the Canada we're used to. And then you look at it, and that's us playing without. I mean, you looked at the injuries and the guys who weren't there. Mexico all of a sudden, you can tell they were like, okay, this is a different cat now. This isn't the same Canada we were used to. So I think that was probably the coolest moment. Just sensing that kind of that respect now that we gained just from that performance. And obviously we were bummed not to advance there. I thought we had a great chance. But also that feeling when we walked off the field that, we belonged up there. It wasn't something that it was too big of a moment or anything like that. It was a young group of Canadian men who showed that they belonged. And I think that's something that, we could hold our chins high about. And that's got us all the more fueled up for these games that start in September.
I think I could talk to you for a few hours, but I know you've got things to do. So I wanted to close on a couple of things even more local, but you played with Vaughan Azzurri, League One Darlings, a program that's produced quite a few players. You mentioned Kamal Miller. If you're watching the CPL, Austin Ricci, Ryan Telfer, there's a lot of Dane St. Clair. The list goes on. And now we have the CPL, obviously, here now, Alistair, and this new pathway for Canadian professionals. I know League One was important for you and it helped you kind of go forward and go into school. But with the CPL now existing, do you see this as an even better chance for players to get eyeballs on them? Because I think at the end of the day, you're not going to be exposed or seen if no one's watching. And I think this league, one of the many things they can do is produce more environments for people to be seen.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. When you look around at all the big footballing countries, there's something they all have in common is they have a really strong league attached to them. And I think that's something that for us to take that next step as a footballing country is that we needed to have our own league where Canadian talent was getting the chance to play at a younger age and showcased on the professional level. And I think that was what was great about League One is that because we didn't have the CPL, a lot of guys who should be playing pro or should be playing at that higher level were forced to play in this league. So me coming through as a 15, 16-year-old and getting to play against men who should be making real money playing pro soccer from that age on was unbelievable. And it also, I think it's just as big for the coaches as it is for the players, is that getting that coaching, the Canadian coaching to that next level is going to be super important. And the only way to do that is to put them into pro environments and let them work with guys full time. So this is another thing with the League One is without CPL, a lot of those coaches were coaching in League One. You look at Forge and obviously York 9. And I think that was kind of the best thing that I got lucky with is that at Vaughan Azzurri is that we had such amazing coaches that I was able to work with from the years from age 15 and onwards, from Carmazzacco and Patrice Geyser. It was unbelievable, the knowledge of the game and the connections they had within Canadian soccer, and turned out with American schools too, which helped me get down there and get my education and also grow as a man and grow as a player. So I think that, if I came through a couple of years later with the CPL thing, it would have been a different story. I think it's only going to help these young players again. Yeah, just getting that exposure and that opportunity to play in a pro environment from a younger age and truly understand what it means to be a pro and how to grow as a player and as an individual at that age is going to be massive. And I'm just really excited to see where this league goes. I think it's got a great upward trajectory. And I think when you look around the world again, is the leagues that have the best coaches will attract the best players. And it's time for us to really start promoting Canadian coaches and giving them the opportunity to. And that'll really take us to the next level. Because once you get that kind of set up and then we really get the academies going, I think it's going to be just a breeding ground for professional footballers that will find their way into the MLS or the CPL or even overseas and playing in massive matches for the Canadian men's national team. And I think that is just, we're now really getting into the building blocks of what it takes to become a footballing nation. And I think everyone should be excited by that.
Hook it to my veins, man. I can run through a wall right now. All right. Last one. I believe you worked with friend of the show, Clayton Hansler, on a Super Draft preview a few years back about your artwork. And I wanted to ask you what you're working on right now.
Right now, it was supposed to be a gift for my mom, which is coming up soon. Her birthday is a couple months away, but I started early on a drawing of me and my brothers when we were younger. All of us I was in a soccer jersey of Roar Stingers to represent.
Of course.
Funny when we got back from camp, and I'm drawing all three of us. So I'm going to send that one up to mom, hopefully in the next couple weeks. So it'll get there in time for her birthday.
As a Richmond Hiller, I know that club well, sir. So shouts to Aurora.
Yes, you do.
Thanks so much, Alistair. This was a blast. Best of luck with Nashville, and of course, best of luck with the Canadian team.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to a football podcast. Our guest today, Canada national team member, Toronto FC midfielder, it's Jonathan Osorio. Oso, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, so just before we get into our topic today, I'm wondering what it's been like really since March 7th and that game against NYCFC to the day soon after when you guys learned that the season was going to be paused. Just describe what the whirlwind that was.
Yeah, it was a shock. I think, the same for everybody around the world. I think at that point, nobody really knew the extent of what was to come and how serious that this virus was. I think it was claimed as a pandemic just shortly before everything, and then when our third game got canceled there on I think it was a Thursday or a Friday. It was crazy, and nobody really knew what was to come. And now fast forwarding to now, just with everything that's been going on, I know it's been really difficult for people all around the world, but for myself personally, I'm just, I've been very lucky and thankful that myself and even more importantly for me, my family has been good and healthy. So, we're just trying to, adapt to this situation and keep going with life.
It's really the best we can do at this point. Also, a lot of sporting outlets and people that love sports have been looking back into the past because we don't really have anything live to watch these days, even though slowly things are returning. But for that reason, also, I kind of wanted to bring you back to 2006 and the year that Toronto FC was named a club. And I wanted to know how old you were and what did this announcement mean to you? Was this the new dream, or take us into the mind of Jonathan Osorio in 2006 when MLS is coming to Toronto?
Okay, well, yeah, 2006, I think I was 13 or 14 years old, and they got announced. It was exciting for the city, for sure. Exciting, for everybody that we're about to have finally our first, our own professional football team here at home, and part of a league that, at the time obviously had big aspirations and isn't what it is now, wasn't what it is now, but obviously with big dreams and stuff like that. So it was cool. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. For me personally, I'm going to be honest, it didn't become my dream to play for Toronto FC at that moment in 2006. It wasn't until a little bit later on. But it opened up a new avenue for kids. And I remember, a lot of guys my age, I think the year after 2007, they introduced the academy. And I know that a lot of guys my age got scouted to go there. And it just it was very professional. It was our first kind of like professional feeling and for kids to strive for. But for me personally, TFC wasn't the objective for me or a dream per se at that moment, but it was really cool that we finally had our own team made here in Toronto.
I think I was a bit on the same level where it was like awesome that we were getting a team of our own, but you're maybe still following the big clubs in Europe or wherever they may be. And though TFC was coming, it was like, all right, let's see what happens here. But I wonder, like, within maybe where you were playing, whether it be the CSL or for Clarkson and Is the conversation changing where guys are starting to realize like, like maybe I can do this not just as something I'm really good at, but I can turn this into a career and something that I can do for many years. Like, is that something that started back then, or like you said, it was kind of like a slow developing thing?
No, I think my mindset to be a professional footballer came from way before that. When I fell in love with the sport as a young kid, I think it's something that, I always wanted to do and I always loved. And, of course, when you're very young, you don't really think about, okay, what are like, you don't think about making it your occupation but it's something that I loved and something that I always wanted to be. I would say around that time, 2006, I was transitioning. I was going to play with Clarkson, and or before Clarkson, I was still at Brampton, and Brampton Youth Soccer Club was the name back then. I had aspirations to be a footballer. I really wanted to do that, and I really committed myself to that. But it wasn't until I would say 2007 or 8 is when I started to really see the potential of actually, making that a reality. And that's when, I really committed myself and dedicated myself to making that happen.
Let's fast forward to 2012, you're starting to train with Toronto FC Academy, and you're invited to train with the first team during the preseason. Some of this was chronicled on All For One, and Clayton Hansler and Sean know well about that. But I wondered, did it sink in immediately? Also, like at that point, are you like, I'm going to do this? Like there's no anxiety. It's just like your extreme confidence, or are you going in as a wide-eyed kid being like, holy crap, like look at these guys around me?
I think at that moment, man, like it's like you said, I think I've talked a little bit about this on All For One, and Sean kind of knows. So, but when I started training, so I started training with the academy only at the end of 2012, and I finally got my in because. The truth is that from the beginning of 2012, when I returned from Uruguay, I was trying to get into TFC, and the truth is that TFC didn't want to look at me, which is pretty ironic. And and because of everything, because of the way everything has turned out, it's just funny because they didn't want me, and for a long time I was very confused as to now what was the next step for me. And it was a hard year. And at the end, I finally got myself into the academy, and I said, okay, that's step one. I got myself into the academy, and hopefully now it's to get a look into the first team. And luckily for me, everything kind of, fell into place. The beginning of, the January of 2013, they got a new coach. A lot of players went with the national team for that January camp. And so they needed players to train. And that's when Danny Dicchio, called upon myself and a couple others to go train with the first team. And from that moment, I knew this was my opportunity and possibly my only opportunity. And so that's the way I looked at it as. And I didn't look at these players wide-eyed. No, I would say that I looked at it as, these are the people that I'm up against. And this is...
Like I can play against these guys.
Yeah. I always had confidence as a kid to play with anybody. It doesn't matter my age, I never looked at age being something, being a big factor in football, especially young. I mean, now I can kind of see why. Experience, I would say, more than age is very important in football. But at that time I was a young kid, and I knew how to play. I knew, I believed in my ability. So when I got there, I truly believed that I could be on this team, and I took every practice. I didn't take any practice or any game for granted. I did my best to show every time that I was on the field that I belonged there, and luckily, man, everything worked out.
It worked out. And what a time to be there as well, right? Also, like, you took your chance for sure, but as you mentioned, the timing did work out in the sense that like things were pretty topsy-turvy back then for TFC, right? Like we weren't close to where we are at now in terms of stability.
No, for sure. I mean, some could argue that it was probably an easier time to get in there just because of the quality maybe of players wasn't what it is now. But at the same time, it was still hard because these guys didn't, I kind of came out of nowhere for these guys. Like, they didn't really expect and so I came at a time when there was a lot of turnover, and honestly, I felt like TFC was looking for something to be happy about, or something. We needed something, I guess, to
like a feel good story.
That was good, a feel good story going into the future, and right. I happened to fall into their lap, and I felt like that year. I felt like that year, that's what it was. And because there was, even the year, my rookie year didn't go well. We didn't do well at all. We didn't make the playoffs. But for me individually, I think I did pretty well. Maybe I could have done better, but I think I held my own, and I showed that, I belong in the league. And so, it was tough.
How well do you remember your first goal?
Perfectly.
Perfect. So I'm talking like to the Zapruder, like exact second by second play by play. You can give me that, or I'm saying like when you woke up that morning, what did you have? How'd you get to the game, etc.
Okay. No, I can't tell you. I cannot tell you what I had for breakfast, or I can't tell you what I had for pregame either. What I can say is that I woke up that morning pretty excited. It was my first game at BMO. So 2 games ago, I made my debut at the Rogers Centre. Then we had an away game in Montreal.
Came on for Terry Dunfield in that first game?
Yeah, came on for Terry Dunfield. We ended up winning that game 2-1 against a very, very strong Kansas City team. So then we had an away game at Montreal, and then it was our opener at BMO. And so this was my first game at BMO, and this is what I was waiting for, dreaming about in the last few years. So I was pretty excited. I knew that I was on the bench, but I knew, I probably had a chance to get in at some time, and hopefully I was hoping that the game, needed an impact, and so luckily for me, I think it was 1-1 at the time when I came in, and so it was a perfect time to make an impact, to try and put the team ahead or change the way the game was going, whatever. I forget the minute. It might have been like 68th minute.
Right. And then I think they got the equalizer real late.
Yeah, they got the equalizer real late. Yeah, but no, man, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember the play, everything. It's cool how that happens.
It's wild because if we fast forward again, and when we talk about you, Oso, and like your success and maybe when it all came together, quote unquote, pardon the cliche, and they talk about 2018 and what we were able to do that season. But I think it's worth asking, like, did something switch? Did something click for you? Like, was there a eureka moment possibly in the off season heading into that season, or looking at the makeup of the team and being like, hey, I fit in here, or I could be the guy that maybe puts us over the top? Because from an outsider's perspective, we were close within the team, like watching it on our level as well. It was something to behold, but I'm wondering within yourself, or like, do you pinpoint to a moment when you're like, okay, like I'm ready?
If I had to choose a certain moment, I would say it happened even right before that offseason. I would say it was MLS Cup final. That game really put a confidence in me that you could probably argue I did not have up to that point. I think I throughout my career, I believed in my ability. I was a confident player. I wasn't afraid of playing against, players with big names and stuff like that. But I think what hurt me was that I looked at these names and because I haven't accomplished what these big names have in their careers, I kind of, I don't know how to say, I I put myself down. I never put myself at their level. You know what I mean? And I never believed I was at their level only because I hadn't accomplished what they accomplished. Like, let's say playing in Europe and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what I found out at MLS Cup final and even down that stretch before that was that, you know, it doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter where you had played and whatever in that moment. If you're really good enough, you know, I could be better than some of these big names in these moments. And that's what I started to believe. I started to believe that, you know, I didn't have to go play wherever in Europe to be at these guys' level. You don't have to go over there and make a name for yourself to believe you're at that level. And so that's when I started to change my mentality. At MLS Cup final, I think I played one of my best games. We won the cup, obviously, and capped off a really good year. And for me, that year, I just, you know, I worked really hard that off season because the whole 2017 season was pretty hard for me because it was my first time not being a regular for TFC. And that was hard for me. It was hard because I was hearing a lot of there's just a lot of stuff going on around me where people were started maybe not believing in me as much and not giving me, basically not believing my ability as much, you know, and thinking that I was on the decline, which that wasn't the case. I think 2017 was actually pretty unlucky for myself, and until the end. And when I got past that, that's when the confidence came, and then that went through onto 2018.
Oh, so you came to Toronto FC and things turned around. Then you get with the national team, and now I know a lot has happened in the years since your first cap to now, but kind of describe where you think the national team is at, because it feels like there are some big steps that are left to be taken, but there's a new feeling around Canadian soccer these days.
Yeah, for sure, and I think for good reason. I think for very good reason. The national team is in a very good place right now. I feel, you know, even we have taken big steps forward from the time I made my first cap, and so it's exciting, man. We got really good young players coming up. We got really good veterans, experienced veterans. We have guys in between that have that experience but are still very young and doing very well in their respective leagues. And I think that's the big thing. I think that's the big difference, is that we have so many players doing well for their clubs and at clubs that are in very good leagues. And so the competition is high, and you know, it's not so easy to make the national team now, or at least not as easy as before. And so it's difficult. It's difficult, one, making the team, and two, even getting into the starting lineup. And I think on good teams, that's the recipe for success. And I think, obviously we have still ways to go to improve, but I think we're on the right track, and there's definitely, reason to be optimistic.
It's wild when you can turn on maybe any football league over the weekend, during a weekend when the games are on, and you can probably find a Canadian in whatever league you want to watch. And before, that was definitely not the case. Also, I know there's been results for the national teams that are up and down. And I think for us fans, we're maybe looking at Mexico and the USA as like the ultimate measuring stick. But is that the same for the players? Like, no one should be overlooked, but is it still Mexico, USA? That is how you guys are going to look at yourselves in terms of progress?
Yeah, of course. I think in CONCACAF, especially, I think that's still the case, that, when you measure yourself up, if you want to measure yourself up, you measure them to the best teams, and historically that's Mexico and US. And, so that's they've made pretty much every World Cup for a long time, or they've made many, and so of course that's who we measure up against, and that's the that's the quality and the level that we have to get to in order to make a World Cup. So those are the teams definitely we're looking forward to, but obviously, like you said, you don't overlook anybody in CONCACAF, because there's many good teams, and CONCACAF is such a, it's difficult. It's a difficult region to come out of. It's not easy, the games. No game is easy, and But, we're confident if we keep going the way we're going and keep improving that, we definitely have a chance to make it to the World Cup.
Oh, so I'm not exactly sure what date this will come out, but it'll come out probably after your birthday that is coming up. And I'm not going to put you on blast, but you are turning 1 year older, and it's leading me to a question kind of just about you, really. Like, let's put it on the table. You're one of the more prominent Canadian players worldwide, one of the better paid Canadian players worldwide. You're a fixture of this city, beloved by the city. I think when we think of Toronto athletes and somebody who's made us proud as being from here, Jonathan Osorio comes to the top of the mind. But where are you looking at in terms of your future? I know you got a contract and everything, but where's the mind of Jonathan Osorio at right now?
It's a great question, man. Right now, man, I'm focused on Toronto FC. I have 2 years of contract, after this year. And my mind is to get another MLS Cup, the MLS Cup back to Toronto, no matter what, first and foremost. Now, in between that time, you never know if opportunities arise that make sense for me and me being contracted to the club. It would have to also make sense for a club. If an opportunity like that comes where, a team in Europe maybe comes, then yeah, that's something you think about. That's something that I think every kid dreams about, playing at the highest level. And me, I dreamed about that as a kid, even before Toronto FC was established. So that's always been my dream. So if something like that comes, who knows? But saying that, my focus is Toronto, man. My focus is Toronto. I want to bring another MLS Cup. I feel like, we've been to 3 finals. We have 1 MLS Cup. I really, really feel like we deserved at least 1 more. And so I'm going to do my best to get that second star or to help the team, because obviously, nothing is done solo in football. But so that's not what I meant to say. What I mean to say is trying to help this team get a second star on the crest.
Yeah, I was thinking personally back to a moment in Vancouver. It was the Will Johnson last minute goal. Remember that also to win the Voyageurs Cup. And for me, like as an outsider's view, but still part of the team, I thought things kind of changed that night, because even though the team was better and primed to do good things, and you guys would go on to the MLS Cup that year, I felt like the belief was really there. And for a club that had great fans and a good infrastructure, but didn't put the results on the field, people really struggled to believe. But I think at that moment, things began to change. But did you get that feeling at some point during this run that TFC has been on? Was there a time when you're like, all right, we're here now? Because it was hard to shake the history of the club.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think you could definitely make a point. You could definitely argue that was that could have been the turning point of this club for sure. I think after that, it gave us confidence. And I think more than anything, something went our way. And
right, exactly.
Up until then, I feel like we've had good teams, but things never really bounced our way. And this was, finally that one time where, with obviously a great play by Will Johnson, to win us the championship. But also, I forget how the play went, whether it's luck or not, but like, I guess just to have that chance in the last minute, you have to have a little bit of luck. And finally something bounced our way. And yeah, for sure. I think that more than anything, that's when the tides turned and we never looked back.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was I think Raheem was involved somewhere. Like there was a bad bounce, and then Will found himself in the right spot and basically had to break his leg to score that goal. But what a moment that was.
Literally, yeah.
That was wild. So all right, we're going to wind down here. Quick hitters. Did you watch The Last Dance, the Bulls documentary?
Of course, yes.
Are you a LeBron or a Jordan guy? What's your take on this? Respect.
I'm a Jordan guy.
Respect.
I'm a Jordan guy before this documentary.
All right.
I would say, yeah. So these are just quick one. I don't get to explain myself,
Exactly.
right?
You don't. I mean, you can.
Okay.
You can. You can.
No.
You can make your
I
defense.
I only want to say that I love LeBron too. I think like I have a ton of respect for him, and I think the debate is not so far anymore. But saying that, I still think I always did think that Jordan was the GOAT.
It's a good answer. We'll take it. Less good. This is a bad question, but we got to ask it. Talking to a footballer, Messi or Ronaldo?
I get Messi.
Okay. No explanation needed. And last question, and I've been racking my brain because I have some guesses as to who it's going to be. But I'll give you a timer also so you don't have all day to think about it. But who has been the funniest TFC teammate you've ever had?
The funniest? God, I mean, there's so many. Funniest? It's so hard to choose. Like,
let's say, all right. Let's say current roster included.
The current roster. I would say a funny guy makes me laugh. There's two tied. Laurent Simon, and Liam Fraser.
Liam, what? I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, to me, as far as like maybe he's not.
I got you. Your brand.
For me,
I got you.
For me, he's funny. Yeah.
I was imagining Q would be a bit of a jokester back there, but I don't know.
Q?
It's a guess.
Like the goalie?
Yeah.
Q Westberg?
Yeah.
Nah.
He's super serious. All right.
I don't want to say he's super serious, but yeah, I would say he's more of a serious, mature guy, you know? Like he's not really a jokester. I wouldn't say that.
It's good to know. Good information. Oso, thanks so much for joining us. Please join us again, man.
All right, man. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.